Hey everyone, welcome to the channel where I share creepy and scary stories that will give you chills. If you love horror and spooky tales, make sure to subscribe and join me every week for a new story. Let's get into the dark side together. The word flashed across every screen in the city's emergency alert network at exactly 2:17 a.m., just as the siren towers blared their discordant drone over darkened streets. No one had expected a meteor strike this close to downtown, least of all over the reservoir that quenched 500,000 lives. But the cameras caught it. A streak of white-hot metal screaming through low cloud, then a blossom of light that turned night into blazing noon for 3 heartbeats. Wyatt Keller saw the explosion from his apartment balcony on the 48th floor. 1 second he'd been half asleep over a late-night editing job. The next, the sky had detonated. A shockwave rattled his windows, knocking coffee across his keyboard. Car alarms wailed in the distance. Then came the silence that follows every disaster, the breathless pause when reality tries to catch up with what's happened. His phone chimed. Shelter in place. Do not drink tap water. Avoid outdoor air until further notice. Panic texted itself across social feeds in real time. Grainy videos of a burning object plunging into Lake Meridian. Selfies lit by the pulse of orange flame. Threads already spawning conspiracy theories. Wyatt grabbed his camera bag on instinct and bolted for the elevator. 2 hours later, after police barricades rerouted him twice, he stood on the observation ridge south of the spillway, lens trained on the crumpled shoreline. The reservoir steamed like a giant kettle with a rock had punched through ice-cold spring water. Emergency crews ringed the edge, biohazard suits, spotlights, drones buzzing overhead. Through zoom glass, Wyatt saw the meteor's husk, a jagged charcoal shell 15 meters wide, broken in two like an egg hit from within. A golden mist curled from the fissure and spiraled over the lake's surface. It shimmered, almost beautiful, until spotlights revealed what floated in it. Motes curling and weaving like dandelion fluff, but moving with purpose, as if alive. He filmed until batteries died, mesmerized. Around dawn, rain began, sudden, torrential, turning floodlights hazy halos. The mist dispersed, carried on wind into the water intake towers that fed every household tap. Officials hustled to seal valves, but the system was old. Redundancy lines still bled unfiltered lake water into feeder pipes. By sunrise, the city woke to yellow notices taped to doors. Boil water advisory. Cafes emptied their brewers. Mothers filled bathtubs just in case. Plumbers made a killing on black market filter kits. Only a few kilometers from the ridge, 6-year-old Nora let Hem poured herself a glass before her mother could stop her. The water shimmered faintly, catching morning light like crushed fireflies. She drank 3 gulps, giggled that it tickled, then ran off to play. 24 hours later, Dr. Celeste Riet, County General, admitted the first patient. A sanitation worker, male, 43, history of migraines, collapsed on shift. Seizure lasted 19 seconds. Blood work flagged, unknown protozoa under dark field scope. Labs sent for further analysis. 3 hours later, 9 more patients presented identical symptoms. Faint vertigo, vivid hallucinations, black thread-like particulates in tear ducts. That evening, a water utility engineer posted a private forum thread titled Movement in the Pipes. He crawled a feeder conduit and sworn something thin and snake-like writhed against flow. Post removed within minutes. Account suspended. Day 3. Wyatt uploaded his footage, but half the clips corrupted. Strange pixel warps were mistouched lens. Comments exploded. Aliens? Toxic chemtrail crash? He arranged an interview with Dr. Ree, though she sounded shaken on the phone. It's an organism, she said. A parasite may be fungal, only it moves far too fast. And patients report dreams of shaping themselves. Stretching, bending. Some say it feels wonderful. Wyatt asked if the city should evacuate. You can't evacuate what's already inside, she whispered, then hung up. Day 4. Social feeds lit with miracle hashtag. Gym influencer posted a selfie flexing impossible new musculature, claimed a biohack hydration routine. A burn victim support group shared footage of scar tissue smoothing overnight. But with each viral clip came darker ones, A street preacher screaming as his face melted and reformed into a blank canvas. A teenager whose arms kept lengthening until joints snapped under their own weight. Government declared martial law. National Guard ringed city limits. Too late. Parasites moved at the speed of thirst. Day 5, 11:58 p.m. Wyatt returned from hospital interviews to find his neighbor, Mrs. Delgado, on the hallway floor. Her silhouette looked wrong. Limbs were shortened, torso swollen as if organs had migrated. She clawed at her own skin, which rippled like warm wax, half solid one moment, translucent the next. Her eyes met Wyatt's, pools of mercury, pleading. A voice escaped her lips, layered with static and chorus. "It's beautiful inside. You can be anything." Something beneath her flesh bulged outward, shaping, sculpting. Wyatt fled, door slamming behind him. On television, officials announced Stage 5 containment. No one allowed in or out. Rolling blackouts imposed a slow water usage. Streets devolved into candlelit panic. Echoes of screams bounced between high rises like alley cats. Wyatt uploaded footage until the grid died. Then the whole city held its breath. Waiting. Listening. Silence. ChatGPT soar. Voices whispered in the static. Beneath the kitchen light, Madison clutched her phone tighter. The call still open, but all she could hear was a crackling, pulsing distortion, as if someone or something was breathing through the wires. The screen flickered briefly, then froze. She set it down slowly. Her son, Elliot, was still outside. The sprinkler had stopped now. Everything had stopped. No cars passed, no wind stirred the trees. The air felt like it was holding its breath. Madison opened the front door and stepped onto the porch. The smell hit her first, not the fresh-cut grass or the sweet scent of gardenias, but something metallic, something wrong. Her neighbor, Mrs. Fernley, was kneeling in her flower bed again, but she wasn't planting anything. She was digging, with her bare hands. Dirt caked under her nails. Her back was arched at an unnatural angle. Her head turned slowly, too slowly, until her eyes met Madison's, and she smiled. It wasn't a smile of recognition. It was something else, too wide, too still, like her face was wearing someone else's expression. "Elliot," Madison called. Her voice trembled. She scanned the yard, the street, the trees. No answer. Then, from behind the bush, something moved, a shape that didn't belong. She ran toward it, half tripping on the sidewalk. Elliot. He stood there, clutching a frog, but the frog wasn't squirming. It was pulsing, changing. Its eyes had shifted to the side of its head. Its legs were too long now. And Elliot wasn't alarmed. He was smiling. "Mommy," he said, voice distant. "It can be anything it wants." She dropped to her knees. "Sweetie, put it down. Come inside. Right now." "But it's okay. It's inside now. It told me it likes it here." Madison grabbed his wrist. It was cold. Too cold. Inside, she bolted the door and yanked the blind shut. She sat him down at the table and ran for her phone again, but there was still only static. She tried the TV. Every channel, just flickers of light, shapes shifting, static voices whispering. It wasn't just her street. It was everywhere. Jason Moreno sipped his coffee and leaned over the monitoring panel, bleary-eyed. He was one of the last humans left working the night shift. The plant's automatic systems usually ran things fine. But tonight, something was off. The pressure gauges were erratic. The filtration pumps had stalled and restarted themselves twice. And now, the chlorine levels were spiking. "Manual override," he muttered, as he moved to the valves. He heard something clatter behind him. He turned fast, wrench in hand. Nothing, just the sound of dripping water. But the drips weren't coming from the pipes. They were coming from the ceiling. Dark water oozed from the vent above him, steaming in the cold air. It dropped onto the floor and started to move, not like liquid, like muscle, like a tongue tasting the metal tiles. Jason stepped back. The hell? It slithered toward him, impossibly fast. He swung the wrench, but it had already climbed his leg. It burned. It wasn't liquid. It was alive. It forced itself into his mouth before he could scream. Elliot had fallen asleep on the couch. Madison paced the kitchen, holding a steak knife. Her laptop blinked on the counter. No internet, no signal. Only one document had opened itself. Something from a local blog. Its title, "A Flash in the Sky." Scientists say it was just a meteor. She clicked it. The article was unfinished. The last line read, "But then people started changing." Her stomach turned. Then came a knock on the door. Gentle, measured, too calm for 2 a.m. She approached slowly, knife raised. "Who's there?" A pause. "Madison, it's Officer Brandt. Open up." She hesitated. She knew him. Lived 2 doors down. But something about his voice was wrong. Hollow, as if it echoed too long in her ears. "Where's your partner?" she asked. "Out checking the neighbors." "Everything's fine." "Then why are you knocking?" Silence. Then, "Because the one inside you wants out." She backed away. The door handle jiggled. Elliot stirred on the couch. His eyes opened, and they weren't blue anymore. Silence. That's what hit Jordan first when he stepped outside the facility gates. Not the usual buzz of city life or the hum of traffic, just a heavy, unnatural quiet, as if the world was holding its breath. "What the hell?" he muttered. He turned the corner onto Brook Street. The sun was out, casting golden rays across empty sidewalks. But there were no people, no dogs barking, no distant chatter. Then he saw them. 3 figures standing at the end of the block, motionless. They looked human, almost, but their skin shimmered like water under moonlight, as if something beneath the surface was trying to reshape them constantly. Their mouths open and close in silent rhythms, as if mimicking breathing but not quite understanding it. Jordan stepped back. His boots scraped on the pavement. Instantly, all 3 turned their heads in perfect synchronization. "Nope." He ran, not back to the lab. That place was compromised. Instead, he cut through the alley, heart thundering, until he reached an old fire escape behind a diner. He scrambled up the iron rungs, breath hitching, and ducked onto the rooftop. From this vantage, he saw the truth. The city was changing. Bodies lay in the streets. Not dead, but transforming. Tendons stretching, bones reforming, flesh bubbling in ways that defied natural order. A man's head split in 2 and reformed as a spike shell. A child's body turned translucent, revealing a mass of writhing veins that pulsed like jellyfish. Parasitic evolution. And at the center of it all, rising from the old reservoir, was the meteor. Or rather, what had been a meteor. It pulsed like a heart now. Black tendrils extended from its base into the city's water lines, burrowing into underground pipelines. Feeding off them, expanding. Around it stood figures, humanoid but featureless, watching, waiting. Jordan pulled out his radio. "Dr. Keller, if you're hearing this, the city's gone. We need containment. Now!" The radio crackled. A faint voice. "Containment not possible. It's in us." Jordan froze. "What?" "In all of us. We drank it." Silence. He dropped the radio. Then came the laughter. Not from below, not from the streets, but from behind him. He turned. One of the figures stood there, head cocked sideways like a curious animal. "I'm what you could be," it whispered. "Let me in." Jordan backed away slowly, but the rooftop had no rail. His foot slipped, and he fell. Darkness swallowed him. But even as his consciousness faded, he could feel it, slithering, creeping. Inside, Brandon stood motionless, his hands trembling as he stared at the sink. The metallic aftertaste still clung to his tongue, thick and unnatural. He turned on the tap again. The water flowed as it always had, clear, cool, innocent. But he knew better now. "Brandon?" Katie called from the living room. Her voice sounded distant, muffled, as if the walls had thickened between them. "Did you find anything?" He didn't answer. His mind raced. Was it the water? The parasite? He rushed to the bathroom mirror. The whites of his eyes were ringed with crimson veins, pulsing subtly. His skin looked taut, as if it didn't quite belong to him anymore. He placed his palms on the sink, breathing rapidly. Get it together, he told himself. Think. He had only taken a sip. Barely. Maybe it wasn't enough. He walked back into the living room. Katie and Jeremy sat on the couch, watching the news. The anchor was pale, hands trembling as she read the latest update. More than 70 confirmed cases of violent transformations have been reported in the past hour. Citizens are advised not to drink tap water and to report any unusual physical symptoms immediately. Emergency services are being overwhelmed. Stay indoors. Brandon's phone buzzed in his pocket. A new alert. CDC. Water contaminated. Do not consume. Boil all water. Avoid public fountains. Symptoms include hallucinations, extreme flexibility, skin distortion, memory loss, violent behavior. He met Katie's eyes. We have to leave. She frowned. What do you mean? Leave where? The city? This isn't just some bacteria. It's something alive. Intelligent. Jeremy looked up. Like an alien? Brandon nodded. Yes. Something that came in with the Meteor. Something that's changing people. As if to punctuate his words, a loud thud shook the apartment. They turned toward the window. Screams echoed from the street below. Brandon ran over and pulled the blinds. A creature was staggering down the road. Its body was longer than it should have been. Spine stretched unnaturally. One arm dragged along the ground, while the other had split into two thinner limbs. Its head turned unnaturally, eyes glowing faintly. Katie gasped. Jesus Christ. Pack what you can, Brandon ordered. We're getting out before this whole place turns into a freak show. Across the city, sirens wailed. Hospitals were in chaos. Doctors didn't know what they were treating. Patients twisted into unrecognizable shapes. Some became translucent. Some melted and reformed. One nurse reported a man turning into a perfect replica of her, down to her fingerprints and voice. But blank, soulless, repeating her words back to her like a mirror with a mouth. The mayor ordered the city under martial law, but it was too late. By nightfall, the National Guard had surrounded the perimeter. Helicopters circled above. But inside, transformation spread like wildfire. Those infected didn't always lose their minds. Some pretended. Some hid. Parasitic whispers lived behind their eyes. And some of them began organizing. They wanted something, not just survival. They wanted to remake humanity in their image. And the water had already reached further than the city. Wells, pipelines, bottled shipments. The transformation had begun. Water. It was all Emily could think about. It had become the center of every question, every fear, every death. The meteor hadn't just fallen into the lake. It had bled into every faucet, every shower, every sip. She remembered the first reports, minor skin rashes, changes in appetite, strange dreams. But now the infected weren't even pretending to be human anymore. Their forms twisted with grotesque creativity, some thin and stretched like rubber, others bloated with pulsating flesh, faces melting into new identities each day, and all of them traced back to the water. She stared at the map they'd drawn across the wall of the safe house. Lines traced the municipal pipelines, reservoirs, even bottled water facilities. Sam had red-circled the treatment plant, the one the city relied on most. If the meteor was in there, every drop was tainted. But there was something else, something deeper gnawing at her. Do you feel it? Emily whispered. David looked up from the shotgun. He was cleaning. What? The need to change. He froze. Silence stretched between them. It's not just in them, David. It's in us too. You've seen it. The voices. The suggestions. David set the shotgun down carefully. I know. I hear them sometimes. At night. Telling me what I could be. What I should be. They offer perfection, Emily said. Beauty, power, flight. Whatever we dream of. But it's not us. It's them talking. His voice shook slightly. The parasites. No. Worse, Emily replied. It's us. They just removed the limits. The truth settled over them like fog. The parasites didn't control the host by force. They simply unlocked the doors that were already inside each human. The desires too dark to act on, The fantasy's too wild to believe in. The parasites whispered, "Why not?" And people listened. "We need to get to the treatment plant," David said. "If we can destroy it, we won't just be killing a parasite," Emily finished. "We'll be killing a piece of ourselves." They packed silently. The air tasted thick with tension, like copper and smoke. Outside, the city had become a living canvas of nightmares. Twisted towers of bone and steel, where buildings used to stand, streets flooded with slime, and people that wore smiles stitched too wide. They moved through alleyways, avoiding eye contact with anyone. At one point, a child-shaped thing stared at them from a rooftop, its eyes black, its smile glowing faintly in the dusk. It waved. David didn't wave back. By the time they reached the treatment plant, the sky had darkened into an oily purple. The gate was open. No guards. No alarms. Just silence. They entered. What they found inside was not a facility anymore. It was a cathedral. The walls pulsed. Flesh-like veins ran across every surface, glowing with soft bioluminescence. Tanks of water bubbled, each holding a suspended, shifting figure. Humans mid-transformation, their shapes warping with every blink. And in the center stood it, the Meteor core hovering above the filtration system. It throbbed like a heart, leaking tendrils of light and liquid into the entire building. Emily stepped forward. It spoke, not with words, but with memory. Her mother's voice, her father's laugh, her childhood dog's bark, all layered into a chorus that whispered, "You don't have to be afraid anymore. Let go. Become." David screamed, firing his shotgun at the core. The blast hit. The meteor flickered, recoiled, but then responded. It shifted into a humanoid figure, impossibly beautiful and terrible. Its voice echoed in perfect clarity. "I only offer the truth." Emily raised her weapon, but her hand trembled. Was it the parasite, or was it her? Was this the future of evolution, not infection, but transformation? David shouted, "Emily!" She blinked, stepped back, and pulled the trigger. The bullet tore into the core. The meteor screamed. The entire room shook. Tanks shattered. Creatures shrieked, and a brilliant white light burst from the impact. And then silence. Darkness. Cold water lapped at her ankles. Emily woke up outside the plant. Smoke rose in the distance. The meteor was gone. David was gone. But she was still there. Still herself, she hoped. And in the puddle beside her, her reflection smiled just a little too wide. That's what he was now, soaked in sweat, blood, and water as the storm raged above. Luke crouched under the twisted remains of a collapsed billboard, his breathing ragged. Every inch of him ached, but the worst pain came from within. Not physical, mental. The scream of his mother, the way her face had split open as the parasite inside took over. Her voice, soft and warm, pleading with him even as she tried to tear out his throat. He had run. Coward. But he was alive. For now, he clutched the data drive stolen from Dr. Kwan's bunker, fingers trembling. Inside it, proof. A record of everything. The meteor's chemical signature, its rapid integration into the water system, and worst of all, X-rays of infected brains. The parasite didn't just ride their nervous systems. It rewrote them. It didn't possess humans. It convinced them they had always been something else. And once you believed that, the body followed. Some wanted to become gods. Some became beasts. And some just vanished into fleshy blobs of eternal suffering. A rumble echoed through the street. Luke pressed himself against the billboard's underside, eyes wide. From the direction of the police station came something moving. Slow, wet steps, dragging across asphalt. He dared to glance through a crack in the billboard. What emerged made him gag. It had once been two people, conjoined now by a single, glistening spine that split at the base into two semi-human torsos. Their heads hung limp, sharing one eye that blinked erratically in the center of their twisted union. A gaping hole in her chest glowed with pulsing blue light, the parasite's nucleus. It walked, no, slithered by. It didn't see him, but the nucleus twitched. He held his breath. A mistake. The thing stopped. It began to gurgle speak. "Look," it sang. "You saw. You remember." He bit his tongue. Come see what you are." Luke ran. He didn't look back. He sprinted down an alleyway, vaulted over a fence, and ducked into the shattered back door of a laundromat. The interior was dark, but there was someone already inside, rifling through a duffel bag. A flashlight beam hit his eyes. Click. Shotgun raised. "Don't move," said a voice. Female. He put up his hands. "I'm not infected." "Prove it." He reached into his jacket slowly and pulled out the data drive. The woman hesitated. "What is that?" "Proof of what they are, of what we're becoming." A beat. Then she lowered the shotgun. "You're late," she said. "Dr. Kwan sent you, didn't he?" Luke blinked. "You know him?" "I was his assistant before the lab went dark. He had a plan, a signal, something that could disrupt the parasite's connection to the host's visual cortex." "The eyes?" "Exactly. If you interrupt what they show the brain, you might break the illusion." "But how?" She gestured to the drive. "It's all on there. And if what you have is a full version, we might still have a chance." Luke nodded slowly, but he had to ask, "What happens if we succeed?" She stared at him, then whispered, "Then people see what they've truly become." A pause. "And most won't survive that." Shadows stretched across the floor like reaching fingers, crawling toward Dr. Eliza Monroe as she stepped deeper into the lab sublevel. The hallway beneath the Water Research Center was never supposed to be used, an abandoned research wing left sealed decades ago. But the parasite-infected humans had begun to vanish into it, and now, so had Dr. Reed. Her flashlight flickered. She paused, breath fog in front of her mouth, unnaturally cold for a sealed space. "Reed," she called. Her voice echoed, warping slightly at the end like it was being mimicked. A soft tap, tap. Tap came in response. She followed it, past rusted equipment, shattered beakers, half-melted observation windows. Something had made a nest here. In the corners, the walls pulsed subtly, like something organic was growing beneath the concrete. The air smelled sweet, sickeningly sweet, like rotting fruit and bleach. As she turned a corner, her flashlight beam caught on a figure. Not Reed. It looked like him at first, but his limbs were longer, joints bent slightly wrong. His skin shimmered faintly under the light, like oil on water. He was kneeling, one hand submerged in a vat of thick black water. "Eliza," he said, his voice completely normal. She took a step back. "What are you doing?" "They won't understand us," he said, standing. "We offer them a prison. Now they offer us freedom." Then he smiled. Not a human smile. Something too wide, too perfect. She ran, back through the twisting corridors, heart hammering. But the sound of footsteps didn't follow her. Instead, she heard laughter. Hers, her own laugh, echoing behind her, coming closer. She burst through the upper door, slamming it shut behind her. Sweat poured down her face. On the floor of the lab, she saw a trail of black liquid leading toward the main water tank. Someone or something had already accessed it. In the surveillance room, she pulled up the tank feed. The parasite had begun spreading through the main reservoir. It pulsed within the water like a colony of jellyfish, shimmering, intelligent, moving with purpose. And then the screen flickered. For a moment, she saw her reflection in the glass. But it wasn't her. Not quite. Her face stared back with subtle differences. The cheekbones were too sharp, her eyes too symmetrical, and she was smiling. "Eliza," a voice crackled over the radio. It was Caleb from the CDC team. She hesitated, staring at the mimic on the monitor. "Yes," she answered. "We've locked down Sector 9, but people are reporting hallucinations. And some of the infected, Doctor, they're not human anymore." She turned back to the screen. Neither was she, at least not completely. The parasite inside her had begun to take root. She could feel it now, listening, observing, and waiting. For what? She wondered. The answer came in her own voice, whispering from inside her head, for the rest to join us. Unity, it was a word that echoed through every mind under the parasite's control. A single thought, a shared purpose. And now, that thought pulsed inside Rachel's mind like a second heartbeat. But she wasn't fully theirs. Not yet. The room she had been dragged into was not a hospital. Despite the sterile lights and humming machines, it was a processing center. On metal tables lay others, neighbors, children, even police officers, each in various stages of transformation. Their bodies pulsed with unnatural bulges, as if their insides were rearranging to fit a new architecture. Rachel gritted her teeth and tried to keep her thoughts her own. Rachel, a voice whispered. It was Daniel, or what remained of him. His eyes had gone pitch black, the white swallowed by oily darkness, but his voice still carried some familiarity. You're resisting. That's not good. It hurts more that way. She tried to move, but the restraints held fast. Why are you doing this? She hissed. He tilted his head, the motion twitchy and inhuman. Doing? No. We're becoming. You will too. It's better than fear. Better than loneliness. We are many now. We understand each other. We are beautiful. Rachel spat in his face. The parasite inside Daniel recoiled, but only for a second. He wiped the saliva from his cheek, smiling gently, disturbingly. You still think you're separate, that you matter alone. He pressed a cold device against her neck. Let us show you the truth. Suddenly, she was inside, not a room, but a mind. Hundreds of minds. A collective consciousness. She saw through other eyes, felt foreign emotions. Children playing with claws for fingers. A man laughing as he turned his face inside out like a mask. A woman who had melted into the floor and become the floor. They were free of human limitations, free of shame, of guilt. The parasites let them become anything. But at the core of the hive was something else. Something ancient and calculating. A mind that was not human, not even parasitic. It used the parasites like they used their hosts. It called itself the architect. And it saw her. In the shared dreamscape, it turned toward her with eyes that had no face. You are the last splinter. You will join us. Rachel screamed and wrenched her consciousness back into her body. The restraint snapped. Her skin boiled where the device had touched. But the transformation had not completed. Something in her resisted. She didn't want freedom from pain or fear. She wanted to feel, even if it hurt. She bolted from the table. Alarms blared. Creatures, once her neighbors, slithered, skittered, and ran after her down corridors of writhing flesh and steel. She kicked open a door and found herself in the open, a rooftop. The entire city below was moving. Buildings bent like wax. Streets pulsed with life. People had merged into statues, fountains, lampposts. A new organism was being born, a city that lived. But not everyone was gone. A small group of uninfected stood on the roof opposite her own. Soldiers, scientists, survivors, holding rifles, flamethrowers, old-world weapons that suddenly seemed so fragile. Rachel waved. They saw her. They opened fire, not at her, but at the things following her. Screeches filled the air. Smoke. Fire. The city shrieked in protest. She leapt. Hands caught her. She was pulled onto the other rooftop. Someone pressed a mask over her face. Breathe, a voice yelled. We got you. You're still human. Rachel coughed, tears flooding her face. The architect screamed inside her mind. We are not done. And Rachel whispered, No, but neither are we. Evidence was everywhere now. Dr. Kim stood in the middle of the city morgue, her gloved hands trembling above the remains of what had once been a man. The body was bloated, reshaped. Muscles had grown in strange, illogical ways, as though bone and flesh had taken suggestions from a child's drawing. His skull had split and then resealed, allowing something inside to press up against the skin like a face trying to be born from beneath. This isn't natural, she whispered. Agent Carter leaned over, eyes locked on the grotesque features. That's the third one this week. All dead before full transformation. What's doing this? Not what? Kim muttered. Who? She gestured to the brain scan on the monitor. The neural patterns were distorted, as if a second consciousness had wrapped around the man's own. It's like the host fought back and lost. You're saying this thing thinks? It doesn't just think. It designs. The realization chilled them both. The parasite wasn't just merging, it was molding, recreating people based on unknown desires. Perhaps the host's own subconscious thoughts. Or worse, an alien was imposing its vision. A knock echoed to the morgue's double doors. Carter tensed. "Who the hell would come down here?" he muttered. The door creaked open. A man entered. He was smiling far too wide. "Evening, doctors," he said. "Mind if I have a word?" Kim and Carter exchanged a glance. His skin shimmered. Too smooth. The smile didn't waver. "Actually, I think we do," Carter said, hand drifting toward his sidearm. Too late. The man's body began to ripple, like liquid glass bending in the sun. His arms elongated, bones snapping as fingers doubled in number. Eyes multiplied across his forehead, blinking independently. He lunged. Gunfire exploded in the room. The creature howled. A bullet tore through its jaw, but it didn't bleed. It hissed, evaporating in smoke. Carter dragged Kim out the side exit, slamming the reinforced morgue door behind them. "We're past infection," Kim gasped. "We're at war," Carter said grimly. War was not declared. It simply began. By the next morning, the city was in chaos. Emergency broadcasts looped through every frequency. TV, radio, mobile, urging citizens to boil their water, avoid public fountains, and report anyone acting unusual. But it was already too late. Carter and Dr. Kim drove through the ruined downtown in a commandeered military jeep. Buildings were scorched from failed containment attempts, and shapes, some vaguely human, moved through the smoke. People had transformed in their homes, their offices, on subway trains. And the parasites were learning. "They don't just mimic anymore," Kim said, reloading her sidearm with shaking hands. "They strategize." Carter gritted his teeth. "We kill one, two more show up. They're linked, some kind of hive?" "No," Kim said, eyes cold. "Something smarter. I think they're broadcasting." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small, blinking device, an electromagnetic pulse scanner. The signal it tracked pulsed every few seconds like a heartbeat. "It's coming from the water plant," she said. "Then that's where we end it." They arrived at the facility by dusk. The water plant stood like a tomb, its massive tanks humming with alien energy. Green and violet hues danced across the surface of the metal, alive with something ancient and wrong. They weren't alone. The parking lot was filled with husks, half-melted figures kneeling in silence, facing the plant, twitching like broken puppets. One of them turned. It was a child. Its eyes had no pupils, just pools of reflective black. Its mouth moved, but no sound came. Only the distant echo of Carter's own voice played back from his throat. "Don't shoot," Kim whispered. "It's trying to copy you." "But why?" Carter whispered. "To replace you," she said. "To perfect you." They made their way inside, weaving through writhing pipes and biometal roots that had spread like veins across the walls. At the heart of the plant was a Meteor core, still pulsing, still alive. The parasites fed from it, and standing before it was Sarah, the missing soldier from Unit Echo. But her eyes were gone, replaced with glimmering quartz orbs. Her skin had turned pale and glassy, like polished ceramic. She didn't blink. "Sarah?" Carter asked, aiming his gun. "You left me," she said with two voices, her own and something else underneath. "I saw you die." She smiled, lips cracking. "No, you saw me begin." The room trembled. Fluid pumped through the walls. The Meteor pulsed faster. Kim raised the EMP device. "It'll shut them all down," she said. "It might kill you, too," Carter warned. "I don't care anymore," she replied, tears brimming. "We either stop this now or we become them." A tender shot toward them. Carter fired. Kim slammed her hand down on the trigger. A blinding pulse erupted. Screams, not from mouths, but from the walls themselves, rippled through the plant. And everything went dark. Silence. That was the first thing Dr. Bell noticed as he stepped out into the main street of Fairview. Not the usual silence of a small town at night, but a deeper, unnerving stillness. No wind, no buzzing of insects, not even the hum of power lines. Just silence. Dr. Bell, Nadia, and Elias moved cautiously down Main Street, flashlights cutting narrow beams through the darkness. The buildings around them, shops, restaurants, the post office, stood abandoned, doors half open, windows shattered. Shapes move in the dark, but they never got a clear look. Where is everyone? Nadia whispered. Elias held up his tablet, tracking the thermal signatures. Every house in this block should be full, but the heat readings are all wrong. Too low, like whatever's inside isn't giving off the right kind of heat anymore. That's because they're not people anymore, Dr. Bell muttered. They're shells. Suddenly, a noise shattered the silence. A scraping sound, metal against pavement, echoed from an alley up ahead. The team raised their weapons, aiming toward the sound. From the alley, something emerged. At first glance, it looked like a person, but its arms were too long. Its legs bent backward like an animal's. Its head tilted unnaturally to one side, and its skin shimmered with an oily texture that seemed to ripple like water. It smiled, but the mouth didn't move naturally. It stretched all the way to the ears. Elias froze. It's mimicking a person, but it doesn't understand how humans move. Shoot it, Nadia said through clenched teeth. They fired. The bullet struck its chest, splattering black fluid, but it didn't scream. Instead, it collapsed and began to melt, literally like wax under a flame. Bones cracked as the form collapsed into a puddle of twitching mass. Not dead, Bell said. Just regrouping. We need to find the water facility, Nadia snapped. If we shut off the supply, maybe we stop it from spreading further. They ran, down the streets of a town that had once felt safe and warm. Now it felt like a hunting ground. The town's water facility stood at the edge of Fairview, a concrete building with tall fences and blinking red security lights. As they approached, it was clear they weren't alone. The fence had been ripped open, bent outward as if something enormous had forced its way in. Inside, the air smelled damp, but not of water, of rot. The group moved quickly, navigating between control panels and filtration tanks. Then they found it, a massive, pulsating cocoon hung above the reservoir. It was feeding directly into the town's water supply. Dr. Bell's breath caught in his throat. The cocoon was made of the same iridescent tissue they'd seen on the infected. Dozens of black tendrils ran from it into the walls and pipes. It was alive, and it was intelligent. Elias activated his radio. We found the source. It's massive. A voice crackled back. Too late. Fairview's been quarantined. Orders from above. No one in or out. Dr. Bell looked at Nadia. They knew. They always knew it was bigger than a crash. And then they heard a voice, not through speakers, but inside their minds. You drank. You changed. You belong. The cocoon pulsed. And from every pipe in the room, black liquid sprayed outward. The lights went out. Torn pieces of sky shimmered in the broken reflection of the city's poison water. Marcus stood at the edge of the reservoir, staring into the tainted abyss as if it might show him answers. His skin, once olive-toned, now shimmered faintly in the moonlight, a trace of something not quite human, not quite parasite. The infection wasn't always visible, but he felt it slithering inside him, waiting to reshape him again. He wasn't alone. Lena approached slowly, her breath visible in the cool night. She carried a makeshift syringe in one hand, the contents glowing a faint green. The last dose of the inhibitor. Marcus, she said softly, it's starting again. Your eyes... He turned and she flinched. His pupils had stretched into thin slits. His voice was still his own, but there was something behind it now, a depth that didn't belong. I can't hold it back anymore. He looked down at his hands, which had begun to elongate and distort. It's like they know what I'm afraid of, and they become it. Lena held out the syringe. Then we fight them before they can fully take you. But Marcus hesitated. The parasite inside him whispered seductively, what if you don't have to fight it? What if you could be more, stronger, faster, perfect? The desire to become something greater tugged at him. Was that truly him, or the parasite manipulating his mind? I'm scared, he admitted. Not just of changing, but of liking it. Suddenly, The ground trembled. From the shadows of the trees, forms began to emerge. Not fully human, not fully monster. Dozens of them, twisted, ever-changing. Some walked on all fours, others floated inches above the ground. And all of them had once been people. They had come from Marcus. He was the one they couldn't assimilate, the anomaly, the one still fighting. Lena grabbed his arm. "Marcus, we run. Now." But Marcus shook his head slowly. "I think I know what they want." The horde stopped at the water's edge. Then one stepped forward, a shape almost identical to Marcus. Same eyes, same height, but subtly wrong. "You are us," it said in a layered, echoing voice. "You are what we will become, the hybrid, the bridge." Marcus clenched his jaw. "I'll never be yours." The figure smiled. "You already are. You just haven't accepted it." Lena raised her gun, but Marcus lowered it gently. "No, I need to know. Why me? Why do you want me?" "Because you're the first who adapted without breaking," it said. "You didn't lose yourself. You evolved." Marcus looked back at Lena. "What if we could use this? Fight them with the power?" She shook her head. "You're not thinking straight. That's what they want. That's what they always want." A long silence passed, and then Marcus made a decision. He took the syringe from Lena and smashed it on the ground. "I'm done fighting myself," he said. "If I could become something stronger and stay me, then maybe that's how we win." Lena stared, horrified. "Or maybe that's how we lose you." As Marcus turned back to the twisted reflection in the water, the other version of him nodded. "We begin." It was the word that haunted Daniel's dreams now. Not blood, not death, but the flesh. Because the parasite didn't just wear its host like a skin. It reshaped them, melted them, molded them into fantasies, into nightmares, into symbols of what the host once longed to be, or feared they might become. The city had transformed. Where there were once streets, now undulated slow-moving rivers of shifting bodies, some still vaguely human, others resembling beasts with symmetrical faces, glistening eyes, twisted limbs, and voices like choirs of static. They chanted in unison. "Join, become, shape." Daniel, Kara, and Marcus stayed low behind the remains of collapsed freeway overpass, scanning for patrols. Not human patrols. Those were extinct. These patrols looked like men, yes, but they had no bones, only a stretched exterior held up by tense parasite muscle. They could slither, grow arms, form wings. What are they shaping them into? Marcus whispered. Kara didn't answer at first. Her fingers were clutched tight around a fragment of glass she used as a mirror, constantly checking her own reflection, a paranoia they all now shared. "They're turning people into avatars," she said finally, "versions of themselves, the perfect version, or what the parasite thinks is perfect." Daniel's eyes moved to a figure that walked nearby. It had too many eyes, not grotesquely so, but symmetrically, evenly spaced, a disturbing aesthetic precision. "They think it's beauty," Daniel muttered, "or control, or maybe they're just showing off what we could be." They had to keep moving. A signal had gone out, a possible transmission from outside the quarantine zone. Someone calling from the old dam just north of the city. If it was real, if someone was still alive and fighting this, they had to get there. But the deeper they moved into the city, the more it became clear that resistance wasn't just dying, it had already been absorbed. And worse, something was growing beneath the city, feeding off the changes above. Kara felt it first. Her skin tightened. Not pain, but awareness. "Do you feel that?" she asked. Marcus nodded slowly. "Something's watching." Daniel didn't speak. He was staring at a figure perched atop a rooftop. It was shaped like a man, but its chest was split open, a blooming mass of twitching tendrils pulsing with a light that wasn't his world. The figure raised a hand and pointed at Daniel. It recognized him. That's what the underground tunnel system beneath the hospital felt like. A damp, coiling maze of concrete and old piping, echoing with every footstep and distant thud. Chase's breath fogged in front of him in the cold air as he led the group through, his flashlight flickering across rusted valves and stained walls. Behind him, Dr. Hammond clutched a satchel of supplies, and Dr. Reyes followed silently, her face pale, eyes wide and watchful. The farther they descended, the more warped the space became. Some hallways curve in impossible ways, and others seemed to pulse ever so slightly with each breath the earth took. The parasites had changed the hospital, reshaped its foundations the way they did with people. And there were sounds. Wet, slithering noises. Metal groans that didn't belong. Distant clicks that echoed like teeth tapping. Chase halted at a locked steel door marked Sub-Basement Level 3, Restricted. The keypad beside it had been shattered, wires exposed and sparking. "Can you bypass that?" Dr. Reyes asked. Chase crouched, examined the wiring. "Give me a few minutes." As he worked, Hammond muttered, "We shouldn't be down here. Whatever's underneath this hospital isn't meant to be seen." "That's exactly why we need to see it," Reyes replied. "It's where they're nesting." The door hissed open with a loud clang. Inside, a staircase led downward into blackness. The air smelled thick, not rotten, not moldy, but alive, like breathing inside a lung. They descended slowly. At the bottom, the corridor opened into a cavernous space with low, flickering lights and a strange, wet hum that vibrated in their chests. And then they saw it. At the center of the chamber stood a spire. Not metal, not stone, something organic, pulsating, covered in tendrils and fleshy ridges. It reached from floor to ceiling like a grotesque root. Around it, dozens of people, their bodies contorted in impossible ways. Some crawled on all fours, others floated slightly above the ground, arms outstretched. All were connected to the spire via thin, glowing tendrils plugged into their spines or necks. "Dear God," Hammond whispered. "It's reshaping them, keeping them connected." Suddenly, one of the floating figures twitched. Then another. The glow from the spire intensified, reacting to their presence. "They know we're here," Chase said. Too late. The figures turned, moving as one. No eyes, no mouths, just hollow faces, smooth and emotionless, charging forward like waves of flesh. Chase raised his rifle and fired. The sound echoed like thunder. One figure dropped, twitching, but its body began to reshape, crawling back together. "They're not dying," he shouted. Reyes pulled him back. "It's the spire. It's healing them." Hammond stared at the central mass, horrified. "We have to destroy it." "How?" Chase asked, ducking as a tendril lashed toward them from the wall. "I have thermite charges," Hammond said, reaching into his satchel. "But they need to be placed at the base." Chase looked toward the horde, at least 20 between them and the root structure. "We'll have to fight through." "Then we fight," Reyes said, gripping a pipe from the floor. And with that, they ran, through writhing figures, beneath clawing limbs and shrieking tendrils. Every gunshot, every strike was met with resistance, bodies that fell but twisted back into form. Chase reached the spire base first, slamming a charge into its core. Reyes followed, planting another near the tendril hub. Hammond, shaking, placed the final one and shouted, "Go!" They sprinted back up the tunnel, deafened by the explosion behind them, a white-hot roar that shook the earth. The shock wave threw them against the walls. Dust filled their lungs. Then silence. When the dust cleared, the spire chamber was a crater. The figures were gone. But in the silence, beneath the rubble, a low hum began again, slower now, but steady. The spire was wounded, not dead. Chase met Reyes' eyes. "It's not over." She nodded grimly. "Then we go deeper." The silence of the city, a low hum began to rise, not from machines or power lines, but from the throats of the infected. A synchronized, eerie resonance, like a chant or a signal. Dr. Lena turned to the others, her eyes wide with realization. "They're sinking," she whispered. "Not just physically. They're mentally connecting, like a hive." Jason, clutching his bleeding shoulder, looked up. "So they're becoming one mind?" "No," Lena said grimly. "One body. The parasites are evolving. They're merging their hosts into something bigger." Suddenly, a deep vibration shook the ground. The building groaned. From the lab window, they saw something impossible. Dozens of infected began to converge on the street, collapsing into one another. Skin melted, bones cracked, bodies fused, screams warped into gurgles. In seconds, a monstrous titan rose. 20 feet tall, its skin an ever-shifting mosaic of human faces. One giant eye opened in its chest, glowing with the same amber light as the meteor. Jason fell back. Oh my God! It's building a goddamn avatar. Miles, watching through binoculars, muttered, "That's not evolution. That's transcendence." Pulsed and writhed as the Colossus lumbered forward. Cars crumpled under its steps. Windows shattered from its roar, a sound not of anger, but of purpose. The team raced to the control room deep underground, the last functioning facility linked to the city's original water filtration system. Lena panted as they descended the stairs. If we can overload the main valve, push purified chlorine back to the original system, we might sterilize it. Wouldn't that kill the host too? Miles asked. Jason, pale and limping, growled, "They're already gone." Inside, old dials and blinking panels welcomed them like ghosts. Miles typed quickly, overriding safeties. Alarms blared. "We've got 10 minutes before total pressure loss." Outside, the Titan howled, its body now sprouting new limbs, tendrils of muscle that reached toward the sky like roots seeking the stars. Lena turned to Jason. "There's something else." He looked at her. "What?" She hesitated. "The parasite is not just feeding, it's replicating. That meteor was a seed, and it's trying to release spores." Jason's face paled. "So this isn't just about the city?" She nodded. "It's about the planet." Collapse was all that remained of order. The sun had long vanished behind a sky of rusted clouds, churning with unnatural patterns. The city's outline, once proud towers, steel and glass, was now twisted with bone and skin, structure shaped not by architects, but by infected minds drunk on power. Adam and Layla trudged through what was left of the Civic Center. Their breath steamed in the cold, humid air. Even here, in the dead heart of the city, the song of the parasites pulsed in their skulls like a heartbeat. Louder now, clearer, the infected no longer hid. They roamed freely, reshaped in grotesque, personalized forms. Men with wings of glass, women with flesh mirrors instead of faces, children whose limbs bent and snapped into unnatural angles. They did not speak, they projected. Desires, regrets, nightmares. "Do you hear it?" Layla asked. Adam nodded. "It's calling, all of them, back to where it started." He looked toward the filtration tower, the meteor site. They were close. The resistance had been nearly wiped out. Fewer than 20 survivors now, scattered and splintered. Many had turned, some by force, some by choice. Layla had seen her brother, Ethan, just days ago, his body a swirling sculpture of black feathers and molten gold. He had smiled at her before melting through a storm drain. Still they pressed on. Inside the tower, the walls breathed. The meteor's husk pulsed in the center, a black, spined orb tangled with nerve-like tendrils. Around it, dozens of infected knelt, whispering in languages never meant for human mouths. "How do we destroy this?" Layla whispered. Adam didn't answer. He had stopped walking. His eyes had gone wide, dilated. "Adam!" He fell to his knees. "It's inside me." She raised a gun. "Don't you dare. I've been hearing it longer than you. Since the hospital. I fought it. You're still fighting it." He smiled faintly. "No, I'm done." He reached into his coat and pulled out the last shaped charge. He slid it to her. "I'll distract them. You get it close. Then you run. Don't wait for me." "Adam!" "Run." He screamed, his form twisting as a parasite within surged forward. His skin split like paper. He charged into worshippers. Layla didn't look back. That's the word that kept returning to Carter's mind as he followed Dr. Lena and Miles down into the earth, beneath the original impact site, where the first meteor had struck. The parasite beneath the city wasn't just an invader. It was a queen, and all those infected above were extensions of her will. Not mere puppets, but living clay molded into whatever shape she pleased. As they descended into the darkness, The air changed. The stone walls bled with a bioluminescent fluid, casting a sickly amber light. Organic tendrils, vein-like growths, throbbed from wall to wall. Miles gagged as one of them pulsed and leaked something warm against his arm. "This isn't Earth anymore," Lena whispered, her voice breaking. At the base of the tunnel, they entered what could only be described as a chamber, vast, cathedral-like, with columns that breathed and a ceiling that dripped with strange resin. Suspended in the center was something massive. A heart, pulsing, beating, alive. It wasn't metaphorical. The creature they were now standing under had formed a true biological heart, suspended from an intricate web of flesh and alien bone. All around it floated humanoid shapes in translucent sacks, half-born versions of the creatures Carter had seen on the streets. "This is where it remakes them," Lena said in horror. "This is how it gives them form." "It's building a better human," Carter added grimly. "One that doesn't need rules. Just instinct and desire." As they circled the heart, they found something else. Pods, like coffins, each containing people. Real, uninfected humans. Dozens of them. "It's keeping them preserved," Lena muttered. "For learning, for reproduction." Carter stepped back, his gun aimed at the central heart. "We burn it. We blow this entire place to hell." But before he could act, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Cassandra. She looked almost human, her features calm. Her eyes were still hers, but her skin shimmered faintly, too perfect. "You don't understand," she said softly. "This is an infection. It's a gift, a new way of being." "You're infected," Carter said, heart pounding. "You're just wearing her face." "I am Cassandra," she insisted. "But more, better. You could be too, Carter. You don't need to be afraid anymore." He didn't lower the gun. She took a step forward, and then Lena opened fire. The bullets ripped into Cassandra's form, revealing the shimmering, mutable flesh beneath. She collapsed and the walls screamed, not with sound, but with thought. Carter felt it everywhere. The hive was awake now. "You've done it," Lena said, grabbing his arm. "We triggered it. Now we run." From every corridor, from every vein in the walls, the drones began to spill in shifting forms, grotesque bodies crawling and screaming in alien tongues. Carter and Lena sprinted, firing wildly. Miles screamed behind them as he was dragged into dark, his body shifting before their eyes, his jaw dislocating, his hands warping into tendrils. They barely made it to the surface. Carter smashed the detonator as the city shook beneath their feet. The ground buckled, buildings cracked, and then a shockwave, brilliant and hot, tore up from the center of the park. The hive was collapsing, or so they thought. In the silence afterward, as ash fell from the sky and dawn broke over the ruined skyline, Carter looked at Lena. "Did we win?" he asked. She looked up at the rising sun. "I don't know," because far beneath their feet, hidden in tunnels they never reached, something else stirred. Another heart, another queen, and this one was awake. "Reflection," whispered Elena, staring at the pool of water beside the half-collapsed church wall. It shimmered unnaturally, like glass melting in sunlight, and her own image shifted within it. Her eyes, her nose, her mouth, they changed into others, hundreds of others. She stepped back, shaken. Dante grabbed her arm. "We don't have time for fear. They're everywhere now. That transmission," he pointed to the small satellite truck they'd salvaged, its broken antenna now glowing faintly blue. "That was them. They tricked us into broadcasting the signal citywide." Elena looked at the bodies around them, some still twitching, skin writhing like boiling dough. Parasites had reshaped them into grotesque figures with too many limbs, jaws that opened sideways, eyes that blinked on foreheads. "They're becoming ideas," she whispered. "Forms they think we desire. Our fears, our dreams. That's what the Meteor did. It gave them imagination." Dante looked toward the sky. Dark streaks shimmered over the city. The original parasite still orbiting above, a black shell reflecting the sun like a dying star. He pulled a device from his jacket. The remote detonator. "You still think this EMP will work?" Elena asked. "No," he said plainly. but we're out of options. The control station, deep beneath the water filtration plant, was now a cathedral of flesh. Pipes pulsed like arteries. Metal panels bent inwards, forming an obsidian cocoon housing the heart. The Meteor's core had migrated here, and inside it, Gavin, not the Gavin they knew. He was floating in its fluid chamber, suspended, reshaped. Not alien, not human, something new. He smiled when they arrived. "You're finally here," he said. "I'm not your enemy. I'm your evolution." "You let this happen," Dante growled. "I guided it," Gavin said, touching the glass-like surface. "Do you think free will was taken?" "No. The parasites only offered possibility, and people accepted. They wanted to become something else." Elena raised her pistol, trembling. "You're insane." "No," he whispered. "I'm awake." Suddenly, the walls rippled. From every corner, twisted shapes began emerging. Shadows of people they'd once known, now fluid monsters made of memory and fantasy. Dante hit the detonator. The city went dark. A blinding wave of light consumed the chamber. The EMP overloaded every neural pathway the parasites had tapped. The reshaped creatures writhed, screamed, and collapsed into puddles of soft, oily mass. Gavin's tank shattered. He fell to the ground, smoking, twitching, his final breath forming a single word: beautiful. Elena and Dante stood among the ruins. No more screeches, no movement, just silence. But Elena felt something deep inside, a flicker of warmth in her spine, a whisper in her thoughts. "We are not gone. We are you now." Weeks passed. The sky returned to blue. Bodies were buried. The city rebuilt slowly. Elena lived in the ruins of the old library. She didn't dream anymore. Not normally. She saw things. In puddles. In mirrors. In the faces of strangers. One night, as she walked by the fountain in the square, she saw a small child playing. He turned to her. His smile was Gavin's, and his voice, too deep, spoke without sound. "We gave you the power to choose. The next form is yours." She fell to her knees and smiled.